Can you hear me when I have my volume down? Can people hear me? Yes? Okay, thank you. I would like to reiterate, thank you to all 6 candidates for agreeing to run and committing to this. It's a worthwhile and rewarding endeavor to be part of this group. The pay is not great, but the benefit is, the difference you can make in the lives of students. So I thank you, and I've really enjoyed. It's my 7th year as superintendent. Enjoyed working with the board on making decisions in the best interest of kids. So look forward to continuing that. So we'll go to the budget hearing. Do I have to click this? Okay. I always start with our mission statement, and I'll do that again tonight. Our Tri-City School District will provide a strong educational and social foundation to graduate all students college and career ready. That's a mission statement we came up with, though it's probably now 9 years ago. I remember it was a couple of nights' work over at the Old School 12 with a couple of consultants. We got our district goals at that time. It's a great mission statement. It's a mission statement that is behind every decision we make. It's something we take seriously, and no more important time to have that mission statement at the forefront of what we're trying to do than when you're creating the budget. The budget is the plan and the money that we're putting into what we want to do next year as far as program and staffing and everything goes. So having that mission statement first and foremost in our mind is critical always. When we're developing a budget, we're always looking to be fiscally responsible and educationally sound. Something over the last 6 or 7 years that I've been helping the board with their budgets and leading the way is this is something we're really proud of that we've done. This has been a really, really tough year to do it. We've struggled through some difficult decisions. I think Mr. Mayo brought up that, when you're in these positions, there are sometimes decisions you have to make that might not be the popular one. But this is a budget that, with our world changing the way it has, that we've done the best we could to get fiscally responsible and educationally sound. Just some quick background in case it's somebody's first time listening. The state budget has really been what has caused our budget issues, and those were caused by the pandemic we're in right now. So really no fault of anyone's. It's just the cards in hand that we were dealt. So early on in the pandemic issue situation, the governor announced that the foundation aid for next year, foundation aid is the money that we can use for operational expenses in districts. All districts get some amount of foundation aid. So the amount that we were getting this year will be the same amount that we'll get next year. So every school district in New York State froze their foundation aid amount. The issue with that decision is districts like ours, districts that serve poorer students, districts that have high needs kids and high needs communities, rely much, much more on foundation aid from the state than other districts do. Other high wealth districts have less aid coming to them. So when you freeze the amount from last year or from this year to next year, for some of our suburban neighbors, that meant they weren't getting $60,000 or $65,000 in additional aid. That's not great for any district to be told that, but coming up with $60,000 in savings is not an insurmountable task. In fact, I think they all handled it pretty easily. For a district like ours, we were expecting in the $2.5 million range. That was our increase last year. That's been our pretty steady increase over the last couple of years. And so when we had our aid frozen, it got frozen at a level where we missed out on $2.5 million. So it becomes tough. Again, I think for outsiders, freezing everybody seems fair and equitable. I have on this slide that it's really unequivocally unfair and inequitable for districts like ours to be searching for $2.5 million while some of the high wealth districts are trying to close $60,000 gaps. So it's been tough, and I think over the last now it's been 5 or 6 months during our budget development process, we've seen and heard it. I did send an advocacy email to the School Boards Association, to the New York State Council of Superintendents, to our small city school district group that I am a part of, to our legislators, explaining what I just said. When you freeze everybody in aid, all districts the same, it doesn't affect all districts the same. So, the governor is talking about possibly the future cuts. I'm hoping that advocacy email has the legs that if he does make cuts, they don't do it in the same way that they did the first round. The other thing that happened in the state budget was something that the governor's been looking to get in there for several years now, and he did get it in this time, which is it gives authorization to have 3 reevaluation or assessment periods. One of them has already passed, April 1st, April 30th. There's a second one from May 1st to June 30th, and then there's a longer one into the next school year from July 1st to December 31st. What those periods do is give the governor and the legislators can have some input. If revenues at the state level come in below their budget projections, he can go back and reduce aid even after the year has started. So that's concerning for sure. Usually when we're at this point and we're approving a budget at the district level, we know the aid that we're getting. It's a set amount. And sometimes we've been disappointed in that amount, but at least we know what it is. This year, it's a little bit different where during these evaluation periods, if the state revenues are below projections, the governor can make decisions to cut state aid even after we've already approved this budget and even after we possibly have started the school year. So very, very concerning, something that's looming. About a week and a half ago, the governor made a quote that said, federal government needs to come through. This is on you, Senator Schumer. This is on you, Senator Gillibrand and Speaker Pelosi. And he made a comment that the Congress at the federal level does not want teachers and cops cut because of this pandemic we're in. So I'm hoping that we get some federal stimulus money and we don't have any future cuts. That federal stimulus money won't increase our aid, but what we're hoping it does is any new federal stimulus money that goes as revenue to state or local governments, or even saw one bill that said the revenue could come right to the districts, that will allow us not to worry about any additional cuts, which we certainly cannot afford. Yeah. So there's our development history for this year. Draft 1 was typical of all our draft 1s. We meet with all the administrators, we meet with the building principals and the directors, and we go through their building budgets and their department budgets, and we talk to them about things they think students need in terms of their building or department, and we make some tiered additions. We've been fortunate over the last few years. The board's been fantastic and supportive. Social workers, for instance, mental health supports. Over the last several years, we've been able to add enough of those over that time that we now have mental health support in terms of social workers in every one of our buildings, and some of our buildings have more than one. It's not going to be any more important. It's more important than ever to have that as kids and adults are struggling through what we're going through right now as a society. As they come back to school, whatever that looks like in September, that mental health support is going to be critically important. So I appreciate the board's foresight into making sure we have those kinds of things. So that's what draft 1 was. More of that. Again, administrators talking about ways they could make their programs better for students. We did add a couple of things in draft one in that regard. Draft two, we were still rolling along. We had some retirements from teaching positions that helped us save a little bit of money. And then the coronavirus pandemic hit. And so we kind of were stopped in our tracks. The normal budget cycle that we had gone through, the budget development process that I've been excited to be a part of the last 6 or 7 years, doing the things that we just said, maintaining program, or in many years, adding to our program so that kids can be more and more successful. Again, it came to a screeching halt. So draft three was where we first saw that just under $3 million budget gap. That put us in a position that we didn't want to be in, that certainly we were not happy to be in. And we spent a lot of time, did a comprehensive and extensive analysis of our budget and all our programs. I realize a couple of the candidates just talked about the reading program. We'll get to that in a minute. We are still teaching reading, and we're still teaching it, the same amount of time as we currently do. It's not a program that we're getting rid of. All we're getting rid of is, not all, but what we decided to get rid of was the teachers that were pulling kids out and helping with that. And we'll still get that done in a way that we think is going to be successful. Again, after an extensive and comprehensive analysis, we were able to close that gap. Nobody's happy about the decisions we had to make. Nobody's, super excited about this budget like we've been in past budgets. But it's a budget that I think we did the best we could, given the circumstances, to be fiscally responsible and educationally sound. The fiscally responsible part, I think I am really proud about that. I think you see the history there up on the right-hand corner of the last 7 years. But more important than those is the last 5, which is in the middle of the page. So this year's tax levy increase is 1.99%. Our tax cap was 2.13%. So the highest we could go without going over the cap would be 2.13. We decided, the board decided to go to 1.99. Again, that's only to be fiscally responsible. So we're trying to keep the taxpayers in mind, trying to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. If you look at those last 5 years of tax levy increases, including this 199 that we got in there, we're less than 5% total tax levy increase over those 5 budget cycles. So again, looking at those last 5 years, we're less than 1% per year average in an increase in tax levy. So really proud of the fiscally responsible piece over that time, and even this year at 199, trying to always keep the taxpayers in mind. The estimated annual cost is there. We used the $100,000 home. That's what we've been using. Want to be consistent. And this 1.99 will mean a $44 increase annually. So we're talking about $3.70 a month increase. And I know this is difficult times for a lot of people. So even $3.70 is not nothing. But again, for maintaining all the programs and services that we're able to maintain and the small class sizes that we're able to maintain in this budget, I think $3.70, I think we've done a good job of being fiscally responsible with the hand we were dealt. I said before, there was a comprehensive, thorough analysis of the current budget and all the programs. That's how the decisions were made. And we always search for other funding sources. I always give Julie Curry and Dr. Watson props here. Julie Curry is our Director of Grants and Funded Programs, and they both do a great job of looking for other sources of money through grants and other ways that won't affect our general fund, but can still help us add programs for students. The educationally sound piece is the piece that was more difficult this year, obviously, and I put in red there under the circumstances. I think, we'll be as educationally sound as we can. I talked about our mission statement and the district goals. We made cuts that will have the least possible impact on student learning. Again, based on our data, we do everything. Remember, goal 4 for the last 5 years has been we will use data in all of our decisions. And we took that out this year because it's just become a part of who we are. from the classroom level. Every teacher's using data to help inform their instruction, to the district level where we're using data in every decision we make, whether that's a budget decision or a staffing decision or whatever else we're trying to do. So based on that data that we've reviewed, based on our comprehensive and extensive analysis, we've made what is the best decision for students. It will allow us to still provide all the crucial and necessary supports so that every student can reach their full potential and achieve success. We have very reasonable class sizes, especially at the elementary level. We average 19 per class, with some even lower than that. That small class size allows for really great and effective core instruction from the classroom teacher, and we'll continue those small class sizes and continue that great tier 1 core instruction. I mentioned before the social workers and mental health supports. And again, I said it's going to be more critical and important than ever to have those in place. Those will all stay, no reduction in that staff at all in this budget. And all the special education services, one of the candidates mentioned that. So all the special education services that we have throughout the district, and we do a great job in that realm. All of those services are maintained in this budget as well. Mr. Mayo talked about our graduation rate. It's one of the things that we are most proud of, and we will. This budget allows us to continue that positive trend of improved student outcomes. Our graduation rate over the last 5 years has fluctuated in the 85 to 88% for a city school, for an urban district. It's 12 or 15 points higher than the average urban districts in New York State, and significantly higher than some of them. Our grade 3 grade assessments, we've had sustained growth throughout the district at every school and every grade level. We do still have work to do there to keep that growth going and to keep that trend going, but this budget will allow us to do that. And we are always trying to educate the whole child. Our extracurricular activities are extensive and comprehensive, and they all remain in this budget as well. And those extracurricular successes are in the music department, in the art department. Our Odyssey of the Mind teams went to nationals last year. Our Mastermind team at the high school won their league again this year before the pandemic hit, and were in the national competition last year. So all of those extracurricular successes we're proud of, and all of that will continue in this budget. These were the gap closure measures from draft 2 before the pandemic hit to draft 3, 4, and 5. Difficult choices had to be made. Again, the last 6 years of budget development process have been fantastic. We did have a couple of years where we just had to maintain the programs we had without adding, but more often than not, in those last 5 or 6 years, we've been able to add more and more supports for our students. So each and every one of them can be successful and reach their full potential. This is the most difficult budget development process I've had as superintendent, and the board has had since the 08-09 years where we had the Great Recession. So difficult choices had to be made. And again, we made them not randomly, not frivolously. We made them after much data analysis, much review, and much conversation and thought. And so one of the things was the administrator's freeze. We offered that to every union, which I think you've heard by now. The administrators were the only ones that chose that. That allowed us to save $136,000, give or take. They also changed their health insurance copay plan. We appreciated them stepping up and doing that. Actually, myself, Mr. Hotel, and Dr. Watson and Ms. Miyaski have matched that, and so we're also taking a pay freeze and changing our health insurance copay plan. So there'll be a little bit more savings on there that happened from this draft. And then the management confidential folks are also taking a pay freeze. So a lot of people stepping up and trying to ease the financial burden the district is facing. We did have to cut 23 instructional positions, a clerical and a labor custodian. Again, nobody is happy about that. Nobody wanted that. we all wish that we had a budget where we didn't have to cut anybody. But again, we cut the positions that we felt were going to have the least impact on student achievement and student learning. We also aren't filling some positions. We have a night maintenance and a registration clerk that have been open for several months, and so we're going to make do for a year the way we're going now without filling those positions. And then some equipment and supplies and other things that we're adding in to save some money to get to that $2.9 million. Reserve utilization, that's some of our savings that we're using. We picked $400,000. I've talked about that before as well. You got to be careful when you're using reserves to close your budget. You're actually operating in a budget deficit. So getting that number too high is actually fiscally irresponsible and puts the future of the district at risk. I talked last week about some neighboring districts that are in the news. Some are making cuts, even though they didn't have the, foundation aid hit like we did, because they hadn't planned ahead with proper and appropriate use of their reserves. There's another district that's out almost 20% with their tax levy. And again, those are kind of things that happen when you use too much reserve. It'd be like in your own house, in your own personal household finances. If your expenses are too much more than your income that you have going in, then you can't continue in that way. You're going to use savings to pay your bills, and eventually you end up with no savings and in a bad financial situation. So if there are more cuts coming from the state, Mr. Hoteling and I have talked, and the board has talked. We probably could come up with another 100,000 there if we had to, but any more than that would be putting the future of the Troy School District financially at risk. And so that was a number that we were comfortable with, but not thrilled about. I do want to talk about the reading instruction one more time because I know it's on the forefront of some people's minds. Again, it's not a decision that we made lightly. It's not a decision that we are happy that we have to make. But I do want to clear up some of the misconceptions. All students will continue to receive 120 minutes of reading and writing instruction and 30 minutes of intervention. That's what they got this current school year, and that's what they'll get next year. Students with disability will see no change in services outlined in their IEPs throughout the district. Nothing this year will change for our special education students in terms of reading instruction. 42 of our current classroom teachers or special ed teachers at the elementary level have multiple certs, including reading or literacy. And so we have the expertise in the classroom teachers and our special ed staff to continue the good work that we've been doing. Reading services will now be provided by classroom teachers, special ed teachers, and other credential providers. Our model relies on the delivery method that we're already using for many kids, which when analyzed demonstrated our strongest evidence of impact and gain. So again, that's happening now for many, many students. It'll now just happen this way for all of the students. And we acknowledge and agree that reading is one of the most critical skills we teach as a district. We remain committed to providing every student with what they need to grow as readers and reach their full potential. The budget hearing is tonight, right now. The budget vote will be absentee ballot only, so a little bit strange doing that. To meet the candidates tonight virtually, which was a little bit strange doing it that way. Everything in our world is a little bit different. So every vote has to be done by absentee ballot. We sent postcards out to every resident over the weekend. Most of them arrived early this week or over the weekend. That postcard has all of that information there. It tells you how you can vote. It tells you who are eligible to vote. And so the ballots then went out early this week and were arriving in mailboxes as of Tuesday and Wednesday. We were getting word that they were in mailboxes. And what we did is mailed it out to voters who have voted in the last 5-year district votes, right? So any of the budget votes over the last 5 years, the district budget votes, or any of our capital project votes. So if you voted in any of those, we have your name and you were sent a ballot that should have arrived this week. If you're not on that list, every single person that's a qualified voter who's registered to vote and wants to vote, just contact the Board of Ed clerk, Ms. Caniff, at boe@choicecsd.org, or you can call the office. We will send out ballots to you that day. Again, we have to receive them by 5 o'clock June 9th. So if you don't think you're on that list of people who voted in the last 5 years of district votes and you want a ballot, contact us, tomorrow or early next week. Don't wait too much longer because you have to get the ballot from us, and then it'll be postage paid, return envelope here, for you to send it back to us. Since last meeting, we've had over 100 people asking for ballots. So I think that message is out there. We've got it on our social media, we have it on our website, and I said it last week, and the postcards arrived. So I think the message is out there, and I think having 100 people already contact us is evidence of that. But again, anyone else that wants it, every person that wants it will be given one. Mrs. Harvin mentioned this in her discussion in Meet the Candidates. What happens if the budget is voted down? I said it last week. There was a little talk last week that if you vote the budget down, it somehow saves the reading teachers. I just want to make sure, again, there's no misinformation. If the budget's voted down, we'll have to go to a contingency budget. Those board members and community members that have been around, we had a couple years back in 08, 09, 10, where we had 2 years in a row that we were contingency budget. They're really tough. You can't purchase any equipment, no non-district events at any of our buildings. But more importantly than either of those two things, it requires a 0% tax increase, which might sound good on its face. But if we have to go down to a 0% tax increase, we need to come up with $740,000 more reducing from the budget. So again, it's not going to save the reading teachers. And in fact, it's going to mean we got to reduce over $700,000 more, which is just going to be devastating for our students and devastating for our district. So hoping that we're not having to deal with that. As I said before, it's not the budget we wanted to be presenting to our community. For the last 7 years doing this, I've been excited on these nights for a budget that I know is great, that we're adding things that I know students need, but the situation that brought us here is beyond our control. We will get through it. We will get through it together, and we have put a budget together that will allow us to continue the positive trend that we talked about before. We are more than ever committed to continuing and building upon that positive trend and improved student performance that we've experienced over the last 6 years. We can do it. We'll do it together. End of story. We have a Google form out there, I think, for questions, right, Mr. Hoteling? You've been manning that?
Yes, there's a couple of responses, but there's really only one question. 2 of the responses were about the Google Meet previously, and some people could not access for one reason or another technologically. And so we do know people were in the meeting. So the Meet the Candidates, I believe, will be posted. So people should look out for that either on the website or social media. The one question that came up, Mr. Carmelo, was, have you considered exceeding the tax cap in order to form the budget? If not, please explain why.
Okay, that's a good question. We certainly consider it every year, but again, this is my 7th year superintendent, 7th year doing budgets. I don't think our community, and the board can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the community would have accepted a tax levy over the tax cap. Remember, when you go over the tax cap, you need a supermajority, which means you need 60% approval. So it gets a little bit harder to approve it. I just think that I've been now in Troy 15 years, and I think taxpayers have made it known to me that they're overburdened, that remember, it's not just school taxes now, they also have city taxes, and they have the library tax, and they have the garbage tax, and they have a whole bunch of other stuff. So always try to keep that in mind. And in fact, you'll see tonight, I mean, when we made our discussion about the tax cap itself, the board wasn't thrilled even going to the tax cap of 2.13. And so we were able to save a little more money from draft 3 to 4 with the freeze that I talked about with district office, and also another retirement from the teaching ranks to be able to get down to 199. So, in our discussions with the board and the Citizens Advisory Committee, who've been a huge part of this development process as well, and we always seek their input. I don't think the community would have appreciated going above the cap, but I guess we won't know because we didn't do it. Thank you for that question, though. If that's the last question, if anybody in the board or Citizens Advisory Committee has a question?
Yes.
Sure.
Am I on? You did mention if anyone was interested in a ballot, that one will be mailed to them. What about a walk-in? What if I would like to walk in, let you know I'm there, or not even let you know I'm there, to walk in the building, to be buzzed in and say I would like a ballot and fill it out right there on the spot and turn it in? No, it has to be
Well,
mailed.
you can't fill it out right on the spot because they're all absentee ballots. We do have monitors working at the front desk now at each of our buildings. So if someone wanted to come to School 12, Mrs. Harvin, I think we could give them one that they would then we have to check the rolls, make sure they're registered, do all those same things that we do once they email for one, but sure. Anybody else have a question on the budget or anything else?